Hey, we are here
That's
with
right.
John Rush. John, tell me a little bit about who you are, like a 30 to 1 minute rundown, and we're going to jump in.
Yeah. My name is John. My wife Amanda and I, with our two daughters, live in Charlotte, North Carolina. We're on staff at Elevation Church here. We've been here for 3 years. Prior to that, we were part of a ministry in Rockford, Illinois, for 10 years. That's where my wife and I met, and so been in ministry my pretty much my entire adult life. I've served primarily in youth, but and my wife has been on staff with us as well.
That's incredible. Were you born in Illinois, or was that where you moved to for ministry stuff?
Yeah, so my family originally is from Minnesota, so that's why I'm a Vikings fan.
Yep.
And at the time of this recording in February, I'm very sad. But then when I was 11, we moved to Orlando, my mom and I, after my parents split up. And then in Orlando is where I actually started going to a church in high school. Junior year, got saved, met my youth pastors, and then kind of got called into ministry, and then moved to Illinois to pursue ministry training at the ministry school up there in Rockford, Illinois.
Oh, nice. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I have a pretty similar story from, I think, high school. So I got saved in high school as well. Didn't grow up in the church. Had a youth leader grab a hold of me, and that's kind of the journey from here. So, dude, I love that. I love when it's not, again, the cookie cutter story, which I also love as well. But when somebody finds Jesus in high school, I believe it's the best thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So for anyone listening to this, or even you, John, so this is conversations. This is if you and I were sitting over coffee in Charlotte or in Omaha or wherever we were. We're just having a conversation. So it's empty,
Nice.
but
There it
we
is.
got it. Like I said, I haven't moved from my desk this morning. But so, John, you're in youth. Give me the rundown. Like, what all do you do? What are your responsibilities on a day-to-day? We've had entrepreneurs on here. We've had financial advisors. We've had pastors. We've had about everybody. But just love to deep dive into you a little bit.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think this is going into my 14th year of ministry,
Wow.
and have been a youth pastor the whole time. I mean, I think the interesting thing to me about one thing that comes to mind when it comes to youth is that a good youth pastor isn't a youth pastor. A good pastor pastors people. A good youth pastor is pastoring parents, principals, potential leaders.
Yeah.
And a good youth pastor that's scaling their ministry is actually probably spending as much time, if not more time, with adults, helping shape and lead the adults that are shaping and leading the teenagers. And so yeah, that's been a fun learning journey over the years, is transitioning from being the 21-year-old who's always staying up late playing Xbox with the kids to kind of growing old, so to speak, with it, and trying to maintain that youthful spirit of like being on the ground with students, being in the midst of what they're up to. And now I've gotten to see kids that were in sixth grade. Now that I've married them, and I've seen people go through life, and you just really realize, man, while middle school and high school, for example, are unique times in people's lives, they're still people, and people are people.
Right.
And honestly, a lot of people, I'm saying people a lot, 'cause that's what it's all about, Jesus and people.
Let's go.
A lot of people, they're not that much different than they were when they were 16, at least in their core motivations, core fears. And sometimes I think we overcomplicate ministry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those are some of my thoughts.
I say that all the time. It's not that complicated. It is because it's people, right? But then the other side of it really isn't, because it's all the same. Yeah, something that frustrates me as our friendship grows, you'll find out there's a couple things that frustrate me. One of them being when people use the excuse of, I'm just not called to youth. I'm just not called to love on youth. When the reality is we're called to people, right? Does that ever frustrate you when somebody maybe in the lobby is like, man, I'm just not called to serve youth?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think, that's a dangerous road to go down, because Like, are you not called to serve the elderly? Are you not called to
Right.
serve the impoverished? Are you
Only-
not called Hispanic people or black people? Are you not called to
Right.
serve women? It's just, I think we got to be careful to not try to shape God's purpose into our preferences. And that's something that, it's a very good thing that we're very in touch with our emotions and our mental health and our Enneagram types and all these things. It's a great advantage. But something that my pastor talks about all the time is that if we're not careful, we will turn learning about ourselves into worshiping our limitations. My pastor said recently that we become more loyal to our limitations than to our potential, and we sell out to our personality type as like, well, here's who I am, but really what we're doing is we're creating a limitation around us. And so I don't know. I shudder to think what other things in that person's life they are excusing themselves from if they say, well, I'm just not called to middle schoolers.
I'm only called to one demographic, said no one ever.
Right.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And what I love, even what you just said, the limitation side, I think, again, Enneagram, Strength Finders, DISC, all that stuff I think is super healthy because it helps us kind of understand and unravel stuff. But I'm an Enneagram 8, but if I just use that as an excuse to not be a kind listener and not be so direct in times, holy smokes, like you said, that's a massive limitation.
You'll
what are
kill
you, by the way?
everyone.
Right.
I'm a 4-wing 3. We actually are just going through as our staff. Crosspoint is one of the Enneagram Institutes, and they have a real in-depth study. And one of our HR staff has become Enneagram certified, and she's taken our whole staff through it, kind of some in large groups, some one-on-one. So yeah, 4-wing 3.
Nice.
Final answer.
Yeah. Let's go. Until next year. Just kidding.
Yeah. Right.
So I want to go into youth a little bit more. So what have you seen maybe in the last 3 years shift, not just in youth ministry, but just youth culture in general?
I mean, really the only thing that I've seen shift is that the disruption in our everyday life caused pastors to realize what people were already experiencing. I mean, a lot of the common thought of the day that's, rhetoric and beliefs that are not biblical. A lot of the disruption when it comes to, who attends what things in person, how often, the disruption of digital ministry. And I mean, all that was already happening for years. Oftentimes as pastors, and I'm guilty of this myself, is we get so caught up in our loops of activities and services and events and everything that we just honestly can isolate ourselves from the world we're trying to reach. And I know it's not really anyone's hearts. And so I think one of the best things that God used during the pandemic was just bringing people together. And I think it really brought pastors face to face with just people's needs. And so, yeah, man, I think obviously, but like circling back, like certainly, teenagers today are not growing up in a world with a biblical worldview. If anything, they're mostly getting caught up into things that are the opposite. And I mean, digital ministry, digital opportunities to reach people, connect with people, discipleship, like all that has definitely come to the surface. I think we've seen like hustle culture kill enough pastors that I think we're maybe getting smart. Robert Morris. Oh my gosh, I bookmarked it. Everyone should go watch it. I don't know the name of that whole message yet. I should go back and watch the whole message. But Robert Morris, who's now, I mean, goodness, he must be getting into his 70s now. Lead pastor of Gateway, just massive man of God. From all I can tell, I don't know him personally, but he was saying a lot of young pastors have been asked me, if you could go back, how would you do it different? And he said, I wouldn't have tried as hard. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. I saw that too. I was like,
yeah.
Holy smokes, man.
But he said it from a place of, he said, now trying hard versus working hard is different. And I think it's not an excuse to work hard. I just think he's like, God told me this would be an international influential ministry. And I should have banked more that he would make that come to pass than me certain months, years, killing myself to do it. And I'm like, wow, so that's cool. So yeah, I mean, a lot there. I don't know that I think we're all kind of here's my thing, Josh. I mean, I think we're all mostly aware of what the problems are in our world. I think we're just pretty divided on the solutions. And I think that unfortunately a lot of experts have risen up in the church and business world that have positioned themselves as experts because they point out trends and problems. But honestly, and then sell like a PDF course on like 5 ways to do blah. And I'm just like, I just think we need a lot more discernment. I think we need to be really careful who we allow to be an influencer and an expert in our life. And I'm really wary, no offense to anyone. You might even like, Josh, you're a good guy. So, you know, I'm sure if you do this, it's fine. I'm just wary of like scrolling through Facebook and it's like 5 courses to grow your church on Facebook. Blah. And I'm just like, I'm sure there's a lot wrapped up in there, but I'm just like, I think we've got to really, really, really hold ourselves to a higher standard of what expertise means. It's not just pointing out the problems. It's actually seeing working models to generate solutions.
Yes. I don't do that, by the way. Wouldn't that have been awkward? Just kidding. Yeah, I think it's all about solutions, but I also, something that I've had to process because information anxiety is so real. Like like you said, scroll on Facebook and I see 3 different pastors give 3 different solutions and I disagree with all of them. But it's like everyone's so different. But again, I think there's stuff to learn and we all get that. But to actually measure things by fruit, like I'm sitting down with dinner with a guy who quite frankly hasn't done anything. Like he's just which is fine. We can hang out. And then my wife and I are sitting at dinner with a couple who's in their 60s. All their kids love God or in the church, have amazing grandkids. I'm like, I want to learn from you. Like, what did you do right? You know, it's like, why don't we all just like stop being experts for like 10 years and then we'll
That's a good word.
We'll come out with a course in our 50s. I don't know. But who am I kidding? So kind of pivoting, talk to me about Youth Nation Gaming. So I've seen it. I think maybe give the listeners a rundown of what it is. Because to be honest, a large majority of the audience is youth pastors, young adult pastors, just people in their 20s and 30s. So I think it'd be really cool to talk through it.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to know you. Yeah, I mean, video games have been a big part of my life, my whole life. My sisters back in the 90s, like, you know, we used to fight over the phone versus the internet, and I'd be trying to game, and I was on some of the early voice chat multiplayer games on PC, stuff like TeamSpeak and Ventrilo. This is like mid 90s, late 90s. And my sisters used to think that I was talking to myself or that I had mental problems because they're like, who is he talking to in this screen? It was just so uncommon, but I've just been something that I've been engrossed in my whole life as a way of expert storytelling in my opinion, and honestly, a huge source of community. And so over the years, that's expressed itself in different ways. In high school, I was competing to be a professional Call of Duty and Halo player. Had some great moments, but ultimately, especially back then, there was such little money in it, and I felt God's call to ministry, and so it was always kind of in the back burner. It was always kind of in the back burner of like my ministry repertoire, if you will, you know. But it wasn't until we had just moved here to Charlotte, gotten to be a part of the ministry here at Elevation, and then like 3 months later, the pandemic shut the world down, and so then as a team, our central youth ministries pastor Tim, a lot of people probably know Tim on here. Shout out Tim. You know, he gathered our team and kind of our whole church is in this posture of just like, how do we stay connected with people? How do we keep doing the things our church has always done? And our pastor led us so well in that. And I just remember even one talk that Pastor Stephen did. He called it TIM, not just for Tim, but it was an acronym he taught our staff of This Is Ministry. It was just like helping our staff and when we couldn't meet with people in the way that we were used to, you know. So one of the ideas that we had out of that, Josh, was just, hey, that I brought to the table was like, hey, why aren't we on Twitch? Why aren't we on Discord? Let's reach some kids through gaming. And so like one of the first things that we did is if you remember, the NBA was shut down, the NFL shut down, everyone was sad. And so one of the ways we launched it, video games as a ministry platform, is we made this video. So sports are back. And we did an NBA 2K tournament. And so it's like, hey, you can watch sports again, or you can play in this tournament. So yeah, man, it's our gaming ministry where we essentially use video game events and community to execute the goals and vision of our youth ministry in our church.
Well, I just love it so much. 2 reasons. One, I can tell how passionate you are about it. Literally, your whole voice went higher because it's just so ingrained in you, which is so fun. And we got to be in places where other people are. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like you said, kind of in the beginning of the podcast, Christians, I think we make our own subcultures, and then we never influence the actual culture. We're just kind of in our little pockets, and everybody thinks we're weirdos. And it's like, hey, dude, I play Fortnite. I play whatever it is. It's like, no, bro, I shoot hoops, whatever it is. So talk to me about more macro. You had an idea. And now, I mean, I've seen it, and you guys are having a $2,000 Fortnite tournament. And so, how did we go from an idea all the way to the end goal? Now it's growing, and there's momentum behind it, and all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot like anything. You just got to be willing to start where you are. Like, we didn't start on a fancy rig. Something that people, I feel like, would be if they're familiar with our ministry at Elevation, like. People know that we have been blessed with a lot of resources, and like things like technology are things that we invest a lot into. And so I think that there's this like stigma though of just like, oh, well, a church like that just throws money at things. But honestly, like we have a really our like executive pastor, CFO, his name's Chunks. He runs our staff and leads our church in the day to day so well. He really leads us to be very frugal and honestly very just solutions based. And so like the way I always explain it to people is like, he always makes us prove the concept. There's a huge prove the concept culture of Elevation. And so it's like, we'll invest as much as we need to invest, but we're going to start small. One of our core values is that we believe big and start small, and that we think inside the box. And so, we just streamed on and we try to move quick. I think that sometimes people try to plan too much, and you got to get in the field, and you're sitting in isolation trying to plan how that post is going to go, kind of plan how that initiative or this. And you got to get in the field, got to get messy, got to be willing to lose a few games so that you can really learn what it's like to be in the game. And sometimes people plan their way into being stuck. And so, man, like I think when we decided we were going to do it later that day, I figured out how to do it. I got a capture card I had at the house at the time. I had like my 2015 MacBook Pro and an Xbox, and we went live, and we did the thing, and in a webcam, and essentially like so yeah, you got to start small. I'd say you got to be clear on your wins. For us from the very beginning, our win was kids getting connected in our youth ministry, like kids getting connected to Jesus. But like everyone wants that. But we had a clear, like, measurable win. That's the key. Is like no church has bad intentions. Christian leaders have good intentions, but we miss the mark because we don't know how to measure it. And so for us, the way we've selected to measure a win in our youth ministry is, are they in a small group, an E group? If they have a few good friends, if they're in Salesforce, that's our church management software, we see their name, it goes from prospect, that means they signed up, boom, we celebrate that. But then when it shifts to member, meaning they've attended for the first time, their leader checks them in, oh my gosh, hot dog, we're off to the races. Like, that's a win. And so everything we do then and now of our gaming ministry was measured really by that statistic, as well as like, are we recruiting leaders from it? So that's really like, and honestly, I know I'm giving the non-creative answer, but it's like the creative part's fun. Like once you build the structure, the ideas will flow. The ideas are the easy part. A lot of us struggled to build structure that can support the good ideas, but all the fun stuff, the tournament, I would even say the resource is an even easier part, because when somebody with resource sees a good structure and a good business plan, they'll give you the money. They'll do it. But a lot of times we want the money before we start. We want to focus on the creative ideas. We want to brainstorm ourselves until we're brain dead.
So good. Just stop right there. Just kidding. So we have 10 minutes left. I want to talk. So we've been talking a lot about digital ministry, gaming, And again, we're here. This is 2023. It ain't 2015 when youth pastors are fighting about should we be on social media. Like, we're way past that.
Yeah.
So talk to me, though. There still are people with the objection about digital ministries. So, John, the floor is yours. Talk to the person who says social media is bad and or social media is fine. Our youth ministry just isn't going to do it.
Well, I mean, I think if they're super against it, they're probably not hearing my voice right now. So mostly, mostly you as the youth pastor and young adult pastor, you're probably dealing with maybe an executive pastor that feels that way, or parents, etc.
Yeah, true.
I mean, like from a theological standpoint, and what I see in the Bible, I'm just like, we don't abandon territory to the enemy. We don't give up. We would never look at a city and say, yeah, Detroit. Nah. Yeah, Rockford. No, we don't go there. Yeah, we just don't go there. And social media is not a platform, it's a place. It is where people are. And just like all of us would completely object to us circling an entire zip code, an entire state, an entire country and saying God can't live here. We cannot do that to the digital space. And it frustrates me how many pastors, kind of like what we were saying before, like, I'm not called to middle schoolers. How many people are like, well, I'm just not a social media person. I'm fasting it. I'm just like, man, what a luxury. What a luxury that you get to numb yourself and mute out from your life the stress, the burdens, and the barriers that people are facing. Nothing reminds me of the daily struggle of humanity, of the daily suffering of people, like turning on social media and not just reading the headlines. It's reading people's posts. It's seeing what they're going through. Honestly, it's also being aware of what they're celebrating. Almost nothing will remind me more of the depravity of the world we're in than seeing what the world is celebrating and dancing over. It humbles me. It brings me to my knees. It brings me back to prayer. And I don't think that every Christian has to engage it the same way. And I'm not trying to put my convictions on anyone else. But I really, really, really strongly, even people who are like my age who have young kids and they're like, well, we're just not, man, you're abdicating, shaping the world your kids are going to live in. And so even if they don't feel, here's some practical advice. Even if you're dealing with somebody who doesn't want to be in the space themselves, they need to support somebody who is. You know, I have a friend, his name's Preacher Guy. He quit his full-time job after 12 years of being a church planner and a campus pastor. He went full-time as a digital missionary on Twitch, playing Call of Duty and Apex Legends, like literally like ministering to people like on the front lines. You know, where what we do at Youth Nation Gaming, we more create community events and like small groups through video games. He's more of like a front-facing content creator, bringing people into his stream, dealing with people. Just last night, someone was like, hey, found you on TikTok. Now I'm in your live stream. Just broke up with my girlfriend. And I'm moving out. I'm hurt. I'm turning back to pills. What do I do? And he's speaking to that. So that got me fired up, Josh, as you can tell. So at the end of the day, though, a quick thing, and then maybe you can sneak a couple more questions in here because I could go off on this one. But where churches do wrong is we make commercials instead of communities, and we focus on content instead of connections. This is the most advertised world we've ever lived in. Commercials turn them off. And while I know we mean well and we feel like we want to inform people, people aren't going to pay attention to accounts. And the algorithm is not going to honor and uphold accounts that are just spitting out information. You have to be experts at creating community through social media. And you have to focus less on what's this content piece and say, how can I make connections? If you work backwards from my goal is community and making points of connection, all the ideas about how to get the your event info out there will come. All the ideas about how to get content out there will come. You're literally sitting there being like, how do I help the sophomore I'm praying to reach? How do I get on his radar? The alcoholic who is stuck, like how do I show up in their everyday life? You can do that. Last little one-liner I always tell people is social media digital ministry is not the best way is not just the best way to reach people around the world. It's the best way to reach people across the street.
So good.
End the scene.
1,000%. Thank you for that. I really, really hope that the people listening to this listen to it. They don't just swipe by. It's just a podcast they listen to on a jog. Like, listen to this, because John is not just a talker. He's a doer. He has, I'm sure, testimonies and stories of the 12-year-old who hated church, but oh my gosh, they play Fortnite. I'd love to get connected. And that's real.
Can I just say that really quick?
Yeah.
I just feel the Holy Spirit on this. You know, the Bible says that, you know, we will overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And some of you maybe just you've been listening. I really feel this for someone. You've been listening to so much information, like Josh said, about social media and the need for it, that you're missing the point behind it. It's the stories, it's the people, you know. And there's this kid, Caden, our first summer camp that we had to do digitally. He's in Hawaii. He turned out to be the nephew of one of our campus pastors, raised in a Christian home. He's dealing with anxiety, feeling stuck in his home during the pandemic. Even before the pandemic, he felt stuck in it. And because we did a Fortnite tournament in July 2020, he got to win in front of a thing that he's good at in front of thousands of people and be celebrated all around the world and create a mile marker, a stone stacking at the riverbank Jordan moment in his life that for all of time he will associate the people of God in church with a positive memory. And now, all the way in Hawaii, he literally gathers like 5 of his friends to watch different churches and ministries on YouTube and be about it. So I just think that's for somebody. Forget the statistics for a second, and you got to get back into some of the stories. You got to not just pray about the followers. You got to pray for the fruit. Sorry, Josh. I felt
no.
What you said was so appropriate. It's the testimonies.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's why anyone who's listening to this, and I'm assuming us too, that's why we got into ministry. We didn't get into ministry for Instagram followers, to preach, to feel good on a Sunday morning, because most of the time we don't anyways. We got in this because of stories and people, and usually the people we love the most, because we want them to experience what we've experienced. So I love that.
That's right.
So last 2 things, John, tell me how we can get connected to you. Maybe this is a youth pastor and it's like, hey, I want to start this in my church. Like, how do I get going on the gaming side of it, or maybe some structure stuff? How do we reach you?
Yeah, so, you know, in general, just, you know, make sure to follow all of our Elevation Youth accounts and reach out to our team. We really do want to help and be a resource for you guys and all of that. But specifically with gaming, I was getting so many questions about gaming ministry that I'm like, this is not my day job. I have a ministry to take care of here at Elevation. And so
right.
I got together with a couple of really awesome kingdom investors and people who feel the same way about me. And we launched a resource called churches.gg. And it's literally a website devoted on empowering pastors to utilize video games for ministry. And we'll eventually, and we kind of already are slowly expanding into more digital ministry as a whole, you know, Discord, you know, social media consulting, all of that stuff. And so I can help with that as well. But our kind of like staple is going like, let us help you utilize video games to reach kids you aren't currently reaching, empower kids that are already in your ministry. So it's www.churches.gg. You can also, this really is the year. I have been dealing with some imposter syndrome and have been fighting some disobedience to God. And this year, I'm really just answering God's call for me to kind of take my own personal approach to social media more seriously and really pray it. So John W. Rush on Instagram. I'm going to be rolling out a lot of content to help leaders, and I get to preach across the country, a bunch of different places this year, and even just got invited to speak in Indonesia, which is really, really cool. So God's really, I'm just really, really, really thankful to God. And then on TikTok and YouTube, I don't know when this is airing, but like I'm starting a YouTube channel and TikTok called Project W Key. W Key in gaming is the forward button. And so the whole idea is going to be full send conversations around the internet's trending topics. And I'm really doing it to be a divine guide to the internet. And so I want to take the things that people are consuming on the internet and try to give a Christian and pastoral short review of just like, should my kid play Fortnite? Should my kid look up to Andrew Tate? What do I think of XQC? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a lot going on there, Josh. But I'd love to see y'all over there and appreciate the support. I think it'll help you.
Oh, absolutely. And I just want to say a couple things. Number one, thank you so much for being on. I looked forward to this conversation. I've learned a lot, and I've been in the media space for like 8 to 9 years, I feel like. But just the powerful testimonies that can come from this, and hopefully from this podcast, I hope that whoever's listening to this feels encouraged. That you might be the 50-year-old guy who's like, I don't know how to do it, but I'm all in, and that's what we need. So I appreciate it, and I hope that people will actually reach out, because the worst thing you can do is become insecure from listening to a John Rush, and he's like, well, he's been playing video games since the 90s. He can figure it out. He knows how to do it. It's like, well, listen to him and learn from him, you know? But my very last question, give me your top 3 current video games that you've been playing for fun, not for anything particular, but fun. And yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite one is a game called Rust, which is like Minecraft for adults. Not that nice. Minecraft isn't for adults. It's just the way I describe it. Meaning like instead of like it's like even like if you don't turn off certain settings, like there's nudity in the game. It's a survival game where you wake up on the beach and you're like literally naked, and your character has to eat and you have to like build and everything like that. It's just fascinating. Like I think anyone who does a quick YouTube deep dive on Rust would just at least like watching the content. It's really fascinating. Yeah. Other favorite game, I love Warzone. The new Warzone, Warzone 2 is really fun. Outside of that, man, I'm dabbling if I want to play an MMO again, which is like a massive multiplayer online game. This can get pretty addicting. So those are really the 2 games I play, but I will say that everything that's coming out of Riot Games, is the future of games. If you don't know what that is, look it up. They are currently making the top 2 titles that are out right now, and are making more games. Oh, and then I probably will dabble into the new Grand Theft Auto whenever it comes out. Yeah. Just from like a ministry standpoint, like there's a lot that you can actually do there. So, which looks incredible. Obviously that probably just sparked a lot of questions there. Did he just say Grand Theft Auto? Yeah, I'm figuring it out. Okay, I'm just saying it just looks interesting. So,
yeah, I will possibly buy it and play it, and we'll figure it out. But are you anti-Fortnite? Because have you played Fortnite? Are you like over it? Like you played it for a couple years and done with it, or?
No, dude. I honestly, like what's so funny is like getting older, having kids, and then even the moment. Here's another thing that's tough about the moment a passion becomes a project, you start to lose the passion, and so. It's so funny. I spend so much time working on stuff related to video games that I've watched that sometimes it's not always as much of a refreshing pastime sometimes. So,
100%.
And just in general, like I don't have any, like when I was in high school competing, I was playing 6 to 10 hours a day, depending on the day of the week. And I'm used to being the best at what I do. And so I can really only keep up, with one title being like really good. And so for me, Call of Duty is kind of like my competitive title. And I just fell behind in Fortnite. I still love the game. Honestly, Fortnite is like probably in terms of ministry as well, the most powerful game to utilize for ministry, because you can literally get 100 people in one round. Like imagine 100 kids from your community playing in the same digital atmosphere, talking to each other, hearing about your youth ministry, having a shared experience. Fortnite is powerful. It's not going anywhere. Just don't like being bad, so I don't play it. I watch it though.
Yeah, that's that 3 coming in. Well, thank you so much for being on, man. Seriously, I appreciate it.